I'm Madison Mills. This is Bloomberg Quicktake. Americans are leaving their jobs in droves, as we know, and they've been emboldened by the current labor market. This great resignation, or the great reshuffle, as some people call it, isn't losing steam anytime soon. About 4.4 million Americans quit their jobs in September. That's a record high since the Bureau of Labor Statistics started recording that metric. Meanwhile, job openings weren't changed much at 10.4 million. That's made it challenging for employers to fill positions, and it's driving up compensation and inflation at the same time. So the question is, how can companies retain employees? I want to welcome LinkedIn Chief People Officer Twila Hansen to speak with us on this topic. Twila, great having you joining us today. I want to start by just hearing about the LinkedIn Career Month that you hosted at your company. Tell me what the single biggest driving factor was behind creating this month. Was it employee retention, employee happiness, a combination?
That's great. So we know that one person every 15 seconds lands a job via LinkedIn. So as you mentioned, we are in the midst of a great reshuffle. And so this is a time where employees everywhere are realizing and rediscovering what they want to do with their careers, how they want to spend their time. And they're embarking on a journey to find opportunities that match their needs. So for us, we wanted to make sure that we were investing in that, that employees understood that we are interested in retaining them. We want them to develop their skills. We want them to have clear career paths. We wanted to show our employees that quitting your job doesn't have to be the only option. And it's the concept that you can change careers, not companies. So we're prioritizing recruitment and retention here at LinkedIn. It's an and, not an or. Like many other companies, we're laser focused on recruiting talent, but we're equally focused on retaining our talent and ensuring that they're developing their skills and moving internally.
Yeah, and I know that through this process, you've gathered some really incredible data that speaks to, I think, what a lot of companies are going through right now. But I want to point out some of the statistics here. 37% of employees wanted a change. You have 1,000 jobs available, and LinkedIn's hiring is up by a ton. Your hiring rate is up by 32.3% year over year, and 24% of employees wanted a full change in industry. Is the idea here a little bit that you want to sell employees on the ability to stay home at LinkedIn and still get a new experience, even if that means that they aren't necessarily perfect for that role? You'd rather have someone who has been at the company already?
Well, we believe that our employees are also potential candidates. They know the organization, they understand our culture. These employees are also on interview panels. They're hiring for us. So we're really happy with our employee base. We think that they're, really strong, committed to the mission of LinkedIn. But we want to also just ensure that they understand what career opportunities exist for them within the organization. And I think oftentimes when we're busy or because we're working from home, we can miss out on hearing about what career opportunities exist within the organization. So this was an opportunity for us to be really intentional about what it takes to have internal mobility throughout the organization.
Yeah, and I know that in your role as Chief People Officer, you've been at this work throughout your career. You really lead hiring and talent retention and talent growth. So I imagine you have a lot of conversations with your talent about what exactly they're looking for to be happy. Can you give us the scoop here? Like, if other CEOs are listening to this chat and want to know how they can also keep people, what would you tell them that young top talent is really seeking right now?
Yeah, I think that talent really wants to understand that they don't have to sacrifice their passions for work, that it's not an either or. And what we found through Career Month was that LinkedIn employees were really excited to have the space and encouragement to learn new skills, to explore new areas. So that was a big plus for us, a good insight. We also learned that just having the time to talk about career aspirations, to talk about skills, and making that part of, the sort of a normal conversation between employees and managers, and that, it wasn't something that people needed to shy away from to feel like, they were going to be judged if they were exploring other opportunities. That was a really good insight for us as well.
Yeah.
I think also giving employees the tools so that they understand that they're in the driver's seat, that they have a lot of agency, so they can really drive their careers in the way that makes sense for them, as long as the organization's providing tools and infrastructure, and also just the culture of making it okay to talk about your career. So those are some, 3 key takeaways that were really important learnings for us.
I love that so much, because I was thinking, that I've worked in places where you kind of had to keep it a secret if you were interested in another team, because you wanted your boss to think that you only love them, right? So I was curious about how you kind of instilled that action item you just talked about, of creating a culture where it's okay to talk about your interests without, I guess, fear of some sort of backlash happening to you.
Yeah, I think doing things like Career Month, where we're just putting it into the system, communicating it, making it okay, sort of creating a norm around having those conversations was really important. And also from the manager's perspective, how do you think about investing and ensuring that your employees are going to leave? They are going to leave you one day, and that's really great, especially if they're going to stay within the organization. So it's really normalizing those conversations within the culture.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. They're going to leave eventually. So how can you make sure that they leave and still benefit the overall organization? I know that your data also talks a lot about people feeling burnout right now. And I'm curious if you can talk about how we can go about addressing burnout while also expressing to people that there are other career opportunities. How do you show them that there are other jobs they could take on without that feeling like an added pressure point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, burnout is a real thing that everyone is feeling to some extent. We had earlier this year a Rest Up Week, which is part of our Lift Up program that we started last year, where to specifically address burnout, giving our employees the gift of time, to invest in themselves or in their communities. And that really gave a boost to our employees and, sort of making them feel seen and heard around burnout. Also, as part of that Lift Up program, we introduced a workshop for our managers on how to identify signs of burnout, how to make sure that you're encouraging your employees to take time off, especially last year when it was really difficult to travel. So I think it really does start with managers having the conversation and having the tools to identify burnout. And then when it comes to career mobility, it's really around looking at those opportunities for what's going to give you joy, what's going to bring you energy. And what we learned through Career Month, that a lot of our employees actually found it energizing to talk about different career opportunities, to talk about new skills, to talk about different learning paths, and really carving out that time so they could do so they didn't have to choose between or it felt like an additional job to invest in themselves. So again, I think it's about creating the right environment and normalizing it so that employees, have that little bit of joy and energy when they're looking at career opportunities within an organization.
Right, of course, because who doesn't get excited talking about their own personal growth, right? That's anyone who is a good enough employee to be at the company would assumedly be excited about that. I know your data also shows that some people really want a change, but they don't always feel equipped to go about making that change. And it reminded me a lot of something that I've dealt with in my career with Imposter Syndrome. How do you navigate that? How do you make sure that employees feel empowered to seek out other roles and like they are good enough to make a big leap?
We really focus on skills, and that's something really exciting that we talk about at LinkedIn. And I think a lot of people, when they fall into imposter syndrome, they feel like, oh, maybe they didn't go to the right school, or maybe they didn't have the right degree, or maybe they're not networked. also with the right people. And I think when you focus more on the skills that are needed in a job and how you could attain those skills through learning and through experience, it helps sort of relax people to understand like, oh, okay, it's not necessarily what school I went to or what school I didn't go to. So I think having that focus on skills really does help give people the confidence of building a path for them to attain those skills.
Yeah, a lot of good information for other leaders to think about. Twila Hansen, really appreciate you joining us on all of that. Twila is LinkedIn's Chief People Officer. I'm Madison Mills. Stick with us for more Quick Take right here ahead.